I'll honestly say there may be some typos on this PowerPoint presentation, so bear with me on this, but I will clean it up tomorrow as I'm flying. And I'm going to send it to Carrie and your regional officers so that they can get it all out to you so that you can take it back to your colleges, okay? Because I think you'll find it really helpful as you think about your completion initiative going forward. You heard about the graduation rates not being what they need to be in community colleges, and it's no different in the universities. But that's not really what this completion initiative, why it's so important. And that's what I want to share with you today, is why completion matters. And then what I want to do is to give you some ideas about why it matters to you individually, and also what we collectively can do about it. And we're going to ask you to engage in this and engage others in a way that we've never done before, okay? This initiative really started in 2010. For the very first time in the history of community colleges, there are basically 5 big national organizations serving your community colleges. Excuse me. There's AACC, which is your President's Association. And then there's ACCT, which is the Trustees Association. Phi Theta Kappa is the student voice in this. There's an organization called NISOD that serves faculty and staff. And then what's called the Center for Community College Student Engagement, which is a research group. Never in the history, though, of more than 100 years community colleges have been in existence, have we ever sat down at the table together. We were called together really by the White House because of data that the president had that was alarming, if not arresting. And so when we saw the data, we agreed at that moment that we saw it, that each of the organizations would do everything that they could, individually and collectively working together, to address this completion problem. And now I'm going to share with you why. As you went through World War II, through the 60s, and actually up until the 1970s, the United States had, as a percentage of its citizens, more with a higher education degree than any other country in the world. And you think about what happened economically in the 50s after World War II, the 50s and 60s, the middle class exploded in growth, the economy was working well, but something happened. We now have fallen from number 1 among the 34 industrialized economies of the world to number 16. Number 16. Last year we were number 12. That shows how quickly we're falling behind. The other aspect of it that is equally, if not more alarming, is that other statistic down there at the bottom. Math scores. Our students are scoring in the 25th out of 34 countries in terms of math scores. Now let's just stop for a minute and think what that means for you and for your children and for those who come after us. We've always prided ourselves on the idea of accessing the American dream, providing for our children a better life than what we experienced ourselves. Well, I promise you, you can't do that when you were up at number 1 and now that you're down to number 16 in terms of being able to compete economically. If that was not enough, in less than 5 years, 2018, 2/3 of all new jobs will require a post-secondary completion. High school diploma won't be enough. Now, I don't know what your high school dropout rate is in Michigan. It's one of the things I hope that you will look at. In my state of Mississippi, our high school dropout rate is 50%. 50%. Now think of what kind of life we have committed to those children. They will not have a chance for a livable wage job. No entry-level job. So if you have a 50% dropout rate, you're going to end up supporting financially these students for the rest of their lives, economically. If that was not enough, you can see by my gray hair, a lot of Americans are getting older. And our workforce is dwindling because we're retirement age. So you have fewer students who are coming out of the high school with a high school diploma, let alone going on to college. You have our workforce is getting older. Who's going to work? Who's going to pay the taxes to provide public education? Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, our national defense, how are we going to pay for it? This is serious, urgent situation. And look at this last item here. A child born into poverty in the United States today stands virtually no chance of ever emerging out of poverty. What a sad statement to the most powerful, wealthy nation in the world today, but what will it be tomorrow? And then yet, we have even more students. We have more students in higher education institutions today than ever before in the history of the United States. Now, isn't that kind of irony? We have more students in higher education institutions than ever before, yet we're graduating fewer. On top of that, the students who are coming through in increasing numbers aren't college ready. What I mean is that they're having to take developmental education courses. 60% of students enrolled in community colleges have to take at least one developmental education class. You know what the chances are of you actually taking a 4-credit college class if you have to take 3 dead ed classes, let's say English and math and reading? You know what the chances are of you actually getting to the college credit level? 0. They never make it. 0. So think of that. 60% of the students in community colleges take at least one. Many take many more. And they're not going to make it. We have to ask ourselves why. As I said, you know, in my generation, my family, my father, my parents, high school diploma was enough to get you a good job. But that's not true any longer. It won't be going in the future itself. But then look at this next statement here. This just came out this week in a study. That a student who selects the right field in community colleges actually will have higher starting wages than many students who've earned a baccalaureate degree. But, you know what the problem is? We don't have students who are seeking those programs. It even gets better. Why complete? If it wasn't just a job, look at this. Students who complete a credential are more likely to vote. We need them to vote. That's what democracy is all about, that they participate in the democratic process. Those students who complete vote. Those students who complete a credential are healthier. That stands to reason, doesn't it? They read, they're more knowledgeable, they're going to be healthier, they're going to watch what they eat. Did you know that students who earn a credential increase the likelihood of their children earning a college credential? Parents without a high school diploma, without a college credential, will not likely have their children completing credential either. And importantly, for our communities, students with credentials volunteer more often in their communities than those that don't. So while money is important, this is all about how to live a life, and how to live and be responsible for your country and your democracy. And then the other thing is, when the Great Recession does come, guess what? You're much more likely to be having a job than those who don't have a credential. And that's what happened out of this Great Recession. This data just also came out. All right, so we have the need, as we see it. We need to complete a credential, right? How many of you remember the presidential election recently? Remember the term that they were using, job creators? All right. We need more jobs. We need more jobs. The jobs have been there. That is the biggest hypocrisy of this political campaign. The jobs were there, and they have been there. And it's because of poor policy that we've gotten ourselves in the shape we are today. How is it that there could be 600,000 jobs in manufacturing unfilled today? How is that? In healthcare, 500,000 jobs. I've met with CEOs from all over the country begging for workers, and they can't find them. Microsoft having to import them from outside the United States because we do not have the students with the technical skills to lead Microsoft. How did this happen? That we've had this disconnect between what you're being taught and what you can actually end up in having a livable wage income. We're preparing students for jobs that no longer exist. Now, if you were a business, how long do you think you'd stay in business doing that? You wouldn't. You're giving people a product or a need that doesn't exist. They going to buy it? No. But you and I subsidize this public education enterprise, and we allow it to happen. As I said before, these are the consequences of why completion matters for you and for those who follow you. Have you heard this conversation before? Has anyone talked to you about this? Yes, sir. This is great. Look at the second statement there. STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. That's where the future is in terms of advanced degrees and jobs. The universities in the United States produce more STEM doctoral students and graduates than ever before in the history of this country. But they were not U.S. citizens. They were foreign students who now can go back home to get the jobs because of their emerging economies. Used to, they had to stay here because their countries were so poor, they couldn't get a job back home. Thus, the United States has fallen from number 1 to number 16 among the industrialized economies because we're training them to be competitive against us. But we do not have students in the United States that are actually pursuing science, technology, engineering, and math. You saw we're scoring number 25th out of 34. But again, we allow it to happen. And this is the one, that last statement, that really gets my blood to boil. And that is the fact that we have students who need to get out of college. You have students in California's community colleges that have amassed over 120 credits. Understand that's enough for a baccalaureate degree. And they have not yet earned a credential. They have nothing of economic value. Maybe they have some value, intrinsic value in terms of education of the mind. But they have no way of having the credentials to get a job. And guess what? We subsidized it. Not only that, we let it happen. We didn't advise the students on the pathways that they needed to take. Instead, we just let them come take class, another class, another class, and another class. That amounted to nothing. This past summer, the Department of Labor announced that there were 3.6 million jobs unfilled in the United States. Job creators? And I'm not talking minimum wage jobs. Livable wage, middle income, high income jobs unfilled in the United States. If you want to know where the jobs of the future will be, there they are. The health fields, transportation, distribution, logistics. What that is because we live in a global economy, right? We're going to be shipping more and more overseas. Business and IT, manufacturing, again, culinary and hospitality. Those are your top areas where there will be jobs in the future. But what has happened is this. You all are too young, probably for the most part, to have known a movie. It's called Paper Chase. I'll never forget it. Had a crusty old professor who had this big lecture hall, and he stood down at the bottom of the lecture hall and he said, "All right, starting the semester, young man, look to your left and look to your right. Neither one of them will be with you at the end of the semester because I'm good. I'm hard and I'm proud of it." That was the philosophy that we had in higher education, that you had the right to pay. We'll offer you the class, but we're not really going to give you the support to succeed. That's up to you. You have to seek that support, or bye-bye. And that's what we've gotten away with. We've not held higher education accountable at all, have we? How are they funded? They are funded by what happens in the first, 8 weeks of school. How many, they call, I'm too crass with it, but seats, how many warm bodies in the seats? That's how they get paid. It's not what happens at the end of the term or end of the year in terms of retention. How many come back? How many graduate? That's not how they've been funded. There's no accountability whatsoever. But that's what's changing, is that legislatures across the country now are setting up metrics by which colleges will have to be measured if they want their money. Some of it's good, and some of it isn't so good. It all depends upon the legislature and the strengthening of the strength of the power of the lobbying of the community colleges themselves, and if they're actually engaged in the process of defining those metrics. But the higher education enterprise itself has got to change. But too often what's happened is this. How many of you have ever been to a restaurant and you go and the menu is that thick? And you thumb through it, look and look. I don't know about you, but I started getting paralysis. Takes over. I can't make a decision. Give me 5 items on the menu and I'll be just fine. That's all I need. But you see, that's what we do with students attending community college. Most are first generation, first from their family to ever go to school. We give them a course catalog that thick and say, "Here, young man, you select the course you want to take." Well, he doesn't know where to start. Mom and Dad didn't go to school. He doesn't even know what he wants to do. So he leans over and says, "What are you going to take?" "I'm going to take this one. I hear the professor's easy." "Well, let's just take that." That's how you amass 120 credits and don't have to finish. But that's what happens. You know what the advisor and student ratio is in a community college? How many advisors per student? Take a guess. 1,000 to 1. One advisor for 1,000 students. Is it any wonder that the students are lost when it comes to selecting their courses? But not only that, when we talk about advising, we're not talking to students and saying, "Okay, before you take your first class, I'm not even going to talk to you about enrolling in any classes. Tell me what you're good at. What do you like to do? I've had students I've talked to who dropped out of community college in the nursing program. That's a hard program. And I said, well, why? And they said, it's because I found out I didn't like blood. Well, hello. Why didn't somebody have a conversation with that student? Physical therapy. Student dropped out of physical therapy program. I said, well, why? Well, I found out I had to actually touch people. I'm not making these stories up. And you think, how do we let that happen? But what needs to be happening is we need to be having, how many of you actually, before you took your first course, had someone sit down and talk to you about a career path, somebody in college? Not many. So what I'm really suggesting to you are a couple things. The reason why Phi Theta Kappa is involved in this whole process. We've got to start having conversations with students about what it is that they want to get out of their education. Not only for them, but for the country. We've got to get that done. So, these are the kinds of things that we want to be talking to students about. Did you know, we're always so much in a hurry to get to the university and be with our friends. Because many of us didn't want to attend a community college because it was lesser than in our minds. But do you know that if you transfer before you earn the associate degree, that you increase the likelihood of never, ever earning the degree? Do you know why?
Stuff happens.
Stuff happens. That's coming up.
Take a break, something happens.
Well, actually, no. That is true. I'm sorry, that is true. But my point really here is this. If you transfer before you earn the associate degree, you give the university the license to pick apart your transcript and make you take classes over or take additional classes that you otherwise would not have to. Keep in mind with the difference in cost of the public community colleges as opposed to public university. It's now tuition is 3 times the cost. So, if you have to take 5 additional classes at 3 times the cost, not only that, guess what else happens? Because of that, you're going to have to work more, aren't you? To make up for it. The more hours you work, the less likely it is that you're going to complete. The more time it takes you to get to the degree, the less likely it is you're going to complete. So that's the reason why that happens. So don't you dare transfer to a senior college without that degree. Okay? This last statement here, you may not realize that by your involvement in Phi Theta Kappa, that's what this is all about. It is as important what happens outside the classroom as inside. Sure, your instruction and getting your content is important, but here's your laboratory. This is where you practice. This is where you practice learning how to become a leader. You're not going to get penalized for it. We're preparing you to be good leaders when you're hired. It is as important to engage with your faculty members outside the classroom as in. It's outside the classroom where you share experiences with students who have a different life than your own, where you respect diversity and understand that diversity brings strength and appreciation. You develop the soft skills. How to communicate, how to set goals, how to make presentations, how to plan a program, honors and action, how to write about it, how to work in groups. That is as much of the education experience as it is sitting and listening to a lecture. This, what you're doing this weekend, is so important to your future. So whatever sacrifices that you make, means being away from the spouse, It means giving up some extra money. It means maybe not going to the movie next week. You do it. This is your job right now. You're building a better future for yourself. So think of it that going to school is your job. And you want to be successful at it. This is your one chance for many of you to make it happen. Okay, so we want to have conversations with students to help them understand the benefits of completing college and credentials and the consequences of not. I think you got the picture. It's very important to get that credential. And just like she was saying, if life happens, somebody in your family becomes ill, maybe you become ill, and you have to stop out of college and you have to go to work. If you transferred or you didn't get that credential and you're thrown into the workforce and you're competing against that Phi Theta Kappa member with their credential, you know who that employer is going to hire? The one with the credential. Even if it's not related to the job. Did you hear that? Do you know why? Because the employers want to hire people who have the determination and discipline to finish what they start. That's why. So stuff happens. Life gets in the way. It's insurance in the back pocket that will never turn you down. Okay, so that's why completion matters. Now, what I want to talk to you about right now is what I hope each chapter here will be a part of this next year. We are taking C4 to a different level. I'm going to reveal to you the new materials that we've developed and the new strategies. We're going to do what we've done in the past, and that is increase awareness among all students about why completion matters. We're going to have the C4 banner, as we've had before, to sign a big signing event. But what we're going to do now, the best way to describe it is, what happens after you sign? What happens next? And what about the faculty and staff? Why haven't they bought into this? Because nobody's included in the conversation. That's what I'm finding all my travel across the country. Presidents get it, trustees get it, because that's where the college funding is going to come from. Right? But nobody's having conversation with faculty and staff in terms of what we just talked about. Why completion matters. They think it's just a political agenda, or it's just another fad that's going to be gone long after that president and everybody else believes. So what we're going to ask you to do is engage the faculty and staff. All right? So I'm going to give you sequentially what we would recommend in terms of planning your C4 program. All right? And the thing that I want to really get across from you is, don't let this be exclusively Phi Theta Kappa. This is not a chapter activity. You are the facilitators. You are the empower group to empower all the other student organizations to get them to talk to their members as well. Okay? That is so important that this not be just you. You want to, every student organization leader that you can get them involved in this process. So what we recommend is, as chapter officers, we want you to sit down with the college president, administrator, or faculty representative, and talk to them about why you think completion matters and what you want to do in terms of increasing student success through C4. Okay? We now will be asking colleges to sign a commitment letter where we know that if you as students go sit down with your college president and administration and say that you want to help them increase graduation rates, I don't know too many of them will say no. But we also want them to get on board to help you, because they can't help you. All right? So we want you to plan a C4 committee that would be comprised of a faculty member, administrator, president, perhaps a trustee, students, where collectively you're sitting down together to talk about graduation and completion and what you can do about it. You'll then request the materials from headquarters that we are going to provide at no charge. Okay? If you commit to this as a state, we will provide all these materials to you at no charge as long as supplies last. Okay? You'll set your date for a week of C4 activities to be conducted this fall. We're saying a week, not just the signing of a banner. That's not enough. What we're talking about is we want you to invite senior colleges to your campus. Talk about how to prepare for transfer. What courses will actually transfer what will. We want you to invite business leaders, industry leaders from your community to the college during this week to sit down with students and talk about what jobs are available in my community or in my town. What kind of courses should I be taking? What kind of skills will it take? What kind of degree will it take? We want you to be able to have one day where a student goes to one location. You have student unions, you have big buildings. Have admissions, your registrar, your financial aid. You have to declare a major. You usually have to apply for graduation. You have to do a lot of different things. You have to meet with your advisor. Set up a one-stop shop. Have pizza, give away an iPad, do all these things, but have the students come on one day where they can get everything done. What we're doing is we're meeting the students where they are, rather than asking them to go seek to do this. Okay? So think about that in terms of your activities to be done during the week. Now what we're doing in the materials that we'll be sending in this new guide, we have actually pulled together at least 30 promising practices from activities conducted last year by chapters. We have a lot of great ideas in terms of what you can do with that. We now have new posters that we have designed for the students. They're much larger. We also have posters that are targeting faculty and staff to become involved as completion champions. We have redesigned the pledge card. The pledge card will have the same pledge on it, but it will be perforated, where you actually give your information as a student, your contact information. Then you sign the banner. You keep that contact information. You're going to give it back to the college, and they're going to flag that student's record. Because then what they can do is they can email that student, they can tweet, they can text, to be sure that at 5th week into the semester, that student is where they need to be in terms of completion. And identifying the resources where to go if they're not. This is where we're taking it beyond just being a signing event. This is what's called intentional and intrusive intervention. Okay? But then, this is the next step. The student makes their commitment to complete. They sign the banner. Now what we're going to do is we're going to give each of them a college completion champion card. Okay? And this is what the faculty and staff will commit to do. There is not a faculty or staff member that's going to turn you down if you go up to them and say, I understand what it's going to take for me to complete my completion. I accept responsibility for you, but I need your help. Will you help me? Will you pledge to be a completion champion? And they're going to say yes. And you can say, well, thank you. But you're not done with them yet. What you then want them to do is to turn over their card. They'll have a completion champion pledge. Turn over their card and say, okay, identify 2 specific ways that you're going to help me. And have them write them down. It really causes a person to think, well, what is it that I'm going to do to help? Lots of things that you can do that will cost a dime. You give them a call, you say thank you very much. Now, we have a banner for the faculty and staffs that will be hung right next to yours. But what happens is you take that card back to the college. The college then promotes and recognizes these faculty and staff for serving as completion champions. But most importantly, they're collecting ideas on how these faculty and staff will help you complete. And it will start a conversation among faculty and staff unlike anything you've ever seen before. We've actually tested this and it works. So it's a way to get the faculty and staff involved in developing this culture for completion from the grassroots up through your help. So they have a commitment, they sign it, they sign their banner, they identify ways that they're going to help you complete. Okay? So, after that week is over, at the end of the week, this is what we suggest that you do. Working with the college president and the administration, you call a press conference on the campus. You have the president and the trustees and you yourselves all there. And you talk about why college completion matters and what the college is doing to increase student success at that institution. You have the backdrop of all your posters, your banners, and you know how many students have actually committed to complete. So you ought to have a goal by the end of the week. How many students that you want to actually have committed to complete? Then in the spring, we ask that you do this week again, because you'll have a whole host of new enrollees who have entered in the spring. Then, what we'd ask you to consider doing is this. You have an All-Michigan Academic Team Recognition Ceremony. It's usually held in the state capitol, I believe. What we encourage you to do is this. Working with your college presidents, y'all come to the state capitol with your banners. Faculty are going to be there too. Standing on the steps of the capitol. As a state system, you bring attention to, number one, community colleges support college completion. And this is what we're doing about it. And these are the thousands of students that have committed to complete what they've started. It's a powerful message that you send for your colleges, but also to everyone in the community to know that if they go to Macomb Community College or to Lansing, Henry Ford, or wherever, that they are actually going to provide the support for students to be successful. Then what we ask you to do finally, at the end, is have your college look at all those records of the students who committed to complete, who said they were going to graduate by May 14, and we want to see how well we did. Did we move the needle? If not, what can we do better? We now have 20 states. I'm going to asterisk, I believe, on Michigan. A little powerful, pushing. We have 20 states that have committed. And if this works, this means we will have over 500 colleges that have been engaged in C4. It'll be remarkable when you consider the number of students this will impact. 500 colleges. Now you may be one college, but collectively think of the impact that we can have in the United States. Think about the impact that we can have on the future of this country by helping students understand what it's going to take. So that's the plan. I hope I've given you a good idea as to why completion matters and what you all can do about it. And remember, on the student pledge, the one thing that we say in it each one help one. We all promise to help whatever student can do. That question?
Yes, sir. Actually, there's an addition. Here in Michigan at Schoolcraft College, I believe there's a union presence.
Excuse me?
A union presence.
Yes, faculty staff union?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
A suggestion maybe for everybody here is to invite a union leader to the table as well.
I couldn't agree. I'm so thankful. I wish I didn't pay you to say this.
And the other thing is quite possibly work with the union and add into their collective bargaining agreement some type of language concerning completion course. Because see, we've done many of the things that you talked about the old C4 project, getting everybody involved at the administration level. But when it hits the classroom, the first thought is, oh great, something else I'm responsible for. But if you get the unions involved, and then get the collective bargaining agreements involved, then quite possibly you'll get into the classroom.
I think you're right about that. In fact, I just had a conference call yesterday with the New Jersey Council of Colleges, and they've already signed on to it. And they informed me yesterday that they went to the New Jersey Education Association. It's the statewide NEA, which is the faculty union. And they talked about C4 and the completion effort. You know what they did? New Jersey Education Association, the faculty union gave them $25,000 to support it. Every chapter in the state of New Jersey will receive a $500 grant from the faculty union to help make this happen. So we really can't overestimate the importance of having faculty and staff engaged in this. This is so important. It's going to make or break it. There's no doubt about it. Who sees the students? Every day. The faculty, right? So we have to do a job. I would be encouraging all of you, if you have the opportunity to make a presentation to faculty convocation or the faculty senate, if you have a faculty senate, try to get on that program and talk about C4 and why it's important for students. If it's important to students, faculty will buy into it. But thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions? Yes.
You talk about the STEM fields. How can an advisor advise a student on the STEM fields when they really don't have a knowledge of chemistry, math, physics, engineering, and maybe most of their majors, maybe counseling, but they have no hard science, they usually have soft science in their background?
I would put it this way. Where I've seen it work is where colleges where they have what they call instructional teams. It's not going to be what you're thinking. It's where a faculty member, maybe not in the STEM field, but a faculty member is sitting down, they plan their curriculum for the year, their course, syllabus for the year. They're sitting down with all the support services around the table, the Learning Resource Center, financial aid, the career plan, and they're sitting down there at the table together and say, okay, in week 2, this is where I'm going to be in the course. What could you do to help? What support could you provide at week 2 for my students? And what they're doing is they're actually coming into the classroom and talking about it. Now, what some faculty members say, oh, you're taking away from my instructional time. But the truth of the matter is, the more that we talk to students about career pathways, science, technology, engineering, math, all these other fields, the more likely it is that we're going to keep them in college. Let me put it this way. I wish I could develop a better analogy than this, but if you pay, well, it's like credit cards, I think is a good example. If you take out a credit card and you keep it for a year and you get a new credit card and you keep doing this, you keep doing this, keep doing this, you're going to run the banks out of business. What they have to concentrate on is making you keep that card, incentivizing you to keep that card, right? So they get renewal fees. There's no different in college. That's what our colleges have to do. It's called retention. We're churning students. You know, our completion rates are awful, but just think if we increased our retention rate by 20%, think of how much more revenue your college is going to have. Think of that. They can pay the light bills, more instructors, hire more full-time instructors and staff if you have greater retention. But instead, we concentrate on getting them through the door and then we just let them go. It's all about retention. But it takes a team collective effort. And the other thing I would say about that is that you all learn differently. How many of you all have a smartphone? All right. How many have, let's say, a laptop or a notebook? Yeah. How many of you take classes online? We're still not getting our instructors to meet you where you are in terms of where and how you learn. That's got to change. But it means that we have to meet students where they are. So the whole enterprise system has to change in terms of how we have to educate. And Mia is going to be a good one for you all to talk to. She knows all about this business. But what I would suggest is this. If colleges are going to stay in business, you're going to have a lot of colleges going out of business over the next 5 years. Mark my word, you can write that down. They have to change in terms of how they approach this. And that is, it matters what happens first day, first week in college. The support services have to be, the support people have to be in the face of the students all that week. Helping them, pulling them along, not waiting for them to come to the office to seek help. They're not going to do it. Students don't do option, right? You don't. If it's important for you to complete, why don't we make it mandatory? And let's go get them. But what has to happen is that the whole enterprise of the support services has to change, which means all our roles are changing, whether we're instructors, or support people, or administrators. We have to completely change how we operate colleges. And you all are on the ground floor of helping make that happen. Demand it. It's for your own success and for those who will come after you. So as you do your research at your colleges and you look at graduation rates, start asking the questions. Well, how many people actually use the tutoring lab? How many students are failing math? Do we have a math cafe on campus? What are we doing about that? You all need to be questioning the data yourselves and pushing that envelope. Don't leave it to chance. Any other questions?
How do you combat the dropping of classes due to low enrollment to getting us to complete courses? I recently completed my associate's degree and I had a large problem with classes, my core classes of my degree in the science and technology field being dropped due to low enrollment. And I have had many friends, even in humanities courses, also have that same problem. They have transferred for your university to not a credential because of those problems.
What she's saying is her difficulty in completing and staying on time for completion is that many of the courses that she needed would end up having low enrollment and the college would not offer the courses. I would say that what I'm finding in this situation where the colleges are doing a better job is some of those courses are going to have to be provided online, where it's blended. How many have, I mentioned how many, raise your hands again, have taken classes online? You're going to see more and more of that. And I think that we're improving in terms of the quality of instruction in those programs, but at least you have the opportunity to stay on time and having access to those courses. And they can provide those courses. If you're, say they only have 3 students in your college in your science class that you need, I promise you in another part of the state there's 3 others. They can make that class happen. So you're going to see more and more colleges and statewide systems called virtual community college online programs, systems going forward. But that's what I see happening.
Well, I guess I was a little confused, and I want to some clarification, maybe open up that discussion a little. You said we were number 1, number 16. So does that mean that we got worse, or maybe other countries just got better and we didn't get worse? But I was wondering, why do we have to be the best? Like, what happens once we're the best? Like, why do we have to compete for other countries? Are we stepping on them to get better, or can't we all be the best and work together? Are we just enabling that system of being around to have the power by doing this, or are we all going to raise the level as a whole world and globe? Like, I'm worried about that as a whole.
It's a great question. What she's asking, I think if I can frame this right, are we aspiring to be number 1 because we want to be just better than everybody else? Is that really necessary, or can we raise all boats and be cooperative in this process? And have we fallen? Is that the problem? Or is everybody else just getting better? It's both. We have fallen. When you look at the math scores, our students are performing more poorly than ever before on math scores themselves, just in absolute numbers. Even when you look at the ACT scores that just came out, we again have fallen. And that's not what comparing it to another country. That's here in the United States alone. Our test scores are falling, and our abilities of our students in these areas are falling. The other countries, the emerging economies, they are getting better because they actually are investing more as a percentage of GDP in education than we are right now. Can't we all just get along? Yeah, that's the idea. The more educated that the global citizenry is, the more informed decisions we're going to make. It doesn't mean that one economy has to be the best and run shot over everybody else. That's not the point. If we're strong, China is strong, India is strong, and we raise the economies of all, it